Restoring Men and History. Braveheart. Why are we doing Braveheart? Because you need to see strong men of courage, men of valor, and you're inundated by weak men. So you need to watch these kinds of men over and over so it gets in your soul and your mind and your heart as men, so you can do what needs to be done. Men being men, women being women, you need to see it and have it reinforced constantly. So we do these role models for men in films for Restoring Men in History. You need to see men like William Wallace, what he stood for in real life, and he was a real hero, and what he did, what he wanted. What did he want? He wanted freedom for his people and for his country from England. That's rare. He didn't want power. He didn't want titles. He didn't want prestige. He just wanted freedom for his people and men. And he stood for them. He had magnificent valor. That's something men need. One man can have an impact, and you can be that man out there. You can have an impact and make a difference in the lives of your friends and in the world. William Wallace did it. You can do it. You can stand for your country. You can stand for freedom over tyranny. And you can have an impact by standing for freedom, like William Wallace did. Imagine if more politicians today were serving you, standing for you, and standing for America and the Constitution versus themselves. Power, title, position, or whatever, or a good party, or whatever it is they desire, or a good article written about them. You may have had a bad father or an uninvolved one or an absent one altogether, so it's good to see concrete role models. That's another reason. Large percentage grow up without fathers or involved fathers. So what can we learn from Braveheart? What did the man look like? He's not afraid to die. He believes in the people and he believes in freedom. Historically, he did fight for the freedom of his people. We're going to look at the film today. So here's what happens in the film. King of Scotland has died without a son. King of England, King Edward Longshanks, sees this as an opportunity to take more. He wants Scotland for himself and England. At the beginning, we already see a young, brave William Wallace. The father's going off to war, and the boy William wants to go with him. That's a boy, right? We want adventure as men, don't we? It stirs our heart to have adventure. Battles, wars as boys. We desired that. Holding a sword, holding a gun, and doing something right. Being a hero, saving the girl. That was in our hearts as boys, right? He's upset he can't go with his father. Little boy William says, I can fight. Father looks at him with a good look. He's a great actor, says, I know you can fight, but it's our wits that make us men. And that's one thing we want to do here at Restoring Men in History, right? We want to make you better thinkers. If you believe we need better, stronger men, please subscribe. If you like these videos, please subscribe, comment, and like, and we'll keep making all these videos. Thank you for watching and appreciate you. And for all you men in the film, William Wallace loses his father. So if you lost your father, William Wallace in the film loses his father early in life. Moving scene after his father died, a little girl, she's standing there watching him. Everybody else has left. He's there alone. And the little girl walks over and gives him something. She gives him something a little girl would give a boy, a little flower. And you know, sometimes that's all you men or someone or me needs. One encouraging act, one encouraging deed, one encouraging word to make you think you're not alone. Because so many men are alone, right? He was standing there alone. It's a lonely scene. He's lost his father. Sometimes that's all we need. So right there, you can have an impact today in somebody's life by if their father's died or someone they've loved has died, you can give them a good deed or a good word. Something you can do today. See, it's not always big and fighting for freedom. You can have an impact in somebody's life by just doing one little act, one little deed. So in the funeral before he leaves, it looks like they have a good community, more so than today in America. A lot of people were there, and they seemed to be genuinely concerned and sad. And that's something a little girl would do, right? Bring a little flower. It's feminine. So you're getting the masculine and feminine qualities right away in the story. Boys are boys and girls are girls. Uncle Argyle picks him up, says, we got to leave. Has to leave his home, his friends, all he knows, all he has, all he's ever known. He asks him about the service. Argyle learns that he does not know Latin. He says, you don't speak Latin. Well, that's something we'll have to remedy. And right there, you know, Restoring Men in History is going to like that, because we what? Like men to read. So we know William Wallace is going to be developed as a man, further reach his potential by going with Uncle Argyle and learn things he wouldn't have learned. So opportunity comes out of tragedy, right? And sometimes that's the case. If you're looking for it and you grasp and take the opportunity, man, you got to take it. You may be able to take an opportunity from tragedy in your life, from sadness, and turn it into a positive. Then he has a dream, and his father in the dream says to him, your heart is free. Have the courage to follow it. We'll see if he does it. By the way, how many men are courageous enough to follow what they know is right in their heart and mind and follow their dream? Do we do that? Do you do that? Do you have the courage to follow and do things when you know they're right? When you know it would help others? The uncle does something else. He's standing there with William, young William, and William reaches out and grabs and holds the sword. He pokes him in the head with his finger. Uncle Argyle pokes young William in the head, and he says, first learn to use this, then I'll teach you to use that. Reinforcing what William's father had told him, you got to use your mind. We always talk about that here. You got to use your mind. You got to think, become better thinkers. And we know he will grow up as a man living with Uncle Argyle, teaching him to read in Latin. Longshakes, back to Longshakes. He marries his son off to a pretty French young royal who's now the Princess of Wales in England. Then Longshanks has a meeting with his counselors. How will the French believe our strength when we cannot rule our whole island? What's his plan? This is his plan. It still happens today. Watch. It's relevant for today. Nobles are the key to the door of Scotland, he says. Give them estates here in England and make them too greedy to oppose us. So what he's trying to do, bribe them off, right? They say, but our nobles are reluctant to uproot. He looks at the princess, and this is interesting the way Mel Gibson directs this. Mel Gibson does a phenomenal job as an actor and director here. Incredible. Hats off to Mel Gibson. He's just an incredible filmmaker. As Longshakes is looking at the princess, the pretty young princess, he says, as he delivers all this line, and it's great directing, outstanding actor from Longshakes too. The trouble with Scotland is that it's full of Scots. Reinstitute and grant prima nocta. First, when any common girl is married, our noble shall have sexual rights. He does that so the English lords will move there, so there will be more Englishmen in Scotland. Notice just common girls, not the nobles. There's division there. He wants the nobles on his side so he can bribe them. He does not want to upset the elites, the nobles. Now, this still goes on today, right? Foreign countries still try to bribe, and there's still corruption going on within, right? So it's relevant today because that's still being done. Human nature is human nature. Politics is still politics. Wallace comes back after living and learning with his uncle. He's developed into a man, and you see that. His friends, he first, what does he do when he gets there? Does he go on a mission? Does he have a purpose? Not yet. Well, he has a purpose, but it's a different purpose. He breathes in and he takes in the countryside. He hasn't been home in a long time. And he doesn't look like a man that wants trouble or wars. Looks like a man who wants peace. Hamish sees him, his friend from childhood. They had a rock contest at the beginning. Now Hamish challenges him. You know, this is good competition among men in this kind of community, I think. challenges him to a rock throw, but we see right here that William Wallace has learned to use his mind. He can't beat him in throwing these huge rocks long distance over Hamish, this big guy character in the story, really strong. But William Wallace uses his mind and says, see if you can hit me with it. Because that's what it'll really be like in a fight. You got to hit me. Of course, his friend, the friend's father says, he'll move, and he doesn't. So he wins the rock contest. He says he just wants to raise crops and, God willing, have a family. So watch his mission purpose at the beginning. He just wants to raise crops and have a family, be left alone. He's make good characters and men in real life, like George Washington. He says he loves her and always has. You see it in his eyes and her eyes. So he's met the little girl that gave him the flower. He fully loves his woman. And he says, I will love you forever and no other. And she says it back. These two are in love. They're going to be together forever. But he doesn't want to share it with a nobleman, so they do it in secret. He's committed for life, and he means it. It's before no-fault divorce of today. And you can see he's determined to love only her the rest of his life. Now, some soldiers of the magistrate try to rape his woman. And when they're attempting to rape her, he comes along and saves her. Puts her on a horse, tries to get her out while he diverts their attention and takes the risk. However, as she's riding out, they do catch her. But he risks all for his wife and the love of his life. The magistrate brings her to this post in public square and slits her throat. Listen to what he says. All of you know full well the great pains I've always taken never to be too strict, too rigid with the application of our laws. And as a consequence, have we not learned to live together in relative peace and harmony? Huh? And this day's lawlessness is how you repay my leniency. Well, you leave me with little choice. An assault on the king's soldiers is the same as an assault on the king himself. Why are we reading that? Because it's still happening today, right? The arrogance of this magistrate monitors the arrogance of many bureaucrats today that you've seen, and politicians. Instead of wanting to serve you, they seem to think they know better than you. They seem to think they are providing you leniency with letting you go out of your house, and that you should be good little boys and follow them constantly, even if it is against the Constitution. Oh, arrogance, he's insulted, and you see it. Oh, amazing. His troops tried to rape her. William Wallace defended her. He slits her throat, and he's actually angry at everyone. Could be right today, right? Turning things around to the opposite. Death and the funeral of his girl. He wants to get him back now. Retribution is what you could call it. He's going to get this magistrate back, so he makes a plan, of course, rides in alone, and they think he's alone, and he has a sword behind him. They don't know he has it. But he takes the whole magistrate and all his men out. And then he kicks him down the hill, puts him up against a post, and he slits his throat, just like they did to her. He kills the arrogant magistrate, uses his mind, and assaults. And he wins. Now, in the story at the beginning, he's doing it for the woman. Now, in history, he wanted freedom for the people. And we're sticking to the movie. But William Wallace was a true hero, fighting for freedom. At the beginning, he's doing it for his woman, and I think he rather moves to freedom because he continues to go after this. He could have stopped after this. He got the man who killed his woman. But he's about freedom. He does keep going for his girl, too. I think it's about both because he really loved this woman. Historically, it's just also great directing, but historically that's true. He did fight for the freedom of his people. But after he kills the magistrate, there's this great storm, great directing, because you see the storm is coming. Is going to be William Wallace. He's going to be bringing a storm, right? They took his wife. What will his purpose be now? He got retribution, killed the man who killed her. What's he going for? Freedom. So when things go badly for you, what do you turn to? As men, what are you going to turn to? You're going to have loss. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have disappointments. What are you going to do about it? That's the key here, right? Wallace takes action and does something about it. Turns it to a noble goal of a larger purpose than himself, and men need purpose. So what does he have? We talk about this in Restoring Men in History. You now see a man of purpose and courage. If you're a man of purpose, you should have less depression and loneliness. Should. He's a man on purpose. Then he attacks another lord, and this noble had taken his friend's girl on the night of their wedding and had sex with her. So now they take that and they do it with deception. They take about 50 troops are out and they take these people down, put on their uniforms and just ride right in and then take that. So they've done it twice now. So he used his mind. So we talk about using your mind. He uses his mind and strategy. Then he does another route. He sends a small group out on the plain of soldiers. The British start following it, their army. He brings them right to where he wants them. They take out those guys. So he's using his mind. He's learned strategy. Robert the Bruce and the nobles. Bruce, the man who could be king of Scotland, and his father are talking. And here's the mindset. We're going to set this up today because how many politicians or bureaucrats do you think are like this? Listen to the conversation. It's relevant for today about men for themselves and men for the people. William Wallace is for the people. Watch who the nobles are for. Robert the Bruce. He's visiting his father. Father, come in, come in. A rebellion has begun. Under whom? A commoner named William Wallace. You will embrace this rebellion. Support it from our lands in the north. I will gain English favor by condemning it and ordering pose from our lands in the south. Sit down, sit down. This Wallace, he doesn't have a knighthood, Robert the Bruce says, but he fights with passion and he inspires. And you wish to charge off and fight as he did, eh? So would I, eh? Well, maybe it's time. Father says it is time to what? What do bureaucrats care about? Survive. Politicians, the nobles here. You're the 17th Robert Bruce. Well, you notice how politicians like to hold on to power, right? Administrative state likes to hold on to power. People, when they get the power, don't really like to give it up. Watch Robert the Bruce. You're the 17th Robert Bruce, so they've kept it. 16 before you passed, you land entitled because they didn't charge in, right? They don't want to take a risk, and they don't want to be for the people. They want to be for themselves. Call a meeting of the nobles, Robert the Bruce, but they do nothing but talk. Now that has to sound familiar about politicians, right? Talk and call hearings, talk and call hearings. Rightly so. They're as rich in English titles and lands as they are in Scottish, just as we are. You admire this man, William Wallace. Uncompromising men are easy to admire. He has courage. So does a dog. But it is exactly the ability to compromise that makes a man noble. And understand this, Edward Longshanks is the most ruthless king ever to sit upon the throne of England. And none of us, and nothing of Scotland will remain unless we are as ruthless. Give ear to our nobles. Knowing their minds is the key to the throne. See where they're at here, the nobles versus William Wallace? See, the nobles here in this story, in this film, are the problems for the people. They're the problems for freedom. Knowing the minds of the nobles is important. He didn't say, what did he not say? He didn't say, getting the people freedom is what is important. But knowing the mind of the nobles. That's the key to the throne, he says. So he's talking about his throne, getting a throne, not freedom for everybody. Sounds familiar again, right? Taking care of themselves, more land, more control, more titles for themselves, not freedom for the people. Remember the people that voted for both sides, on both sides, sending money to a foreign country that had its own issues instead of dealing with the debt here, increasing spending and making goods more expensive for you. Human nature, the same. History continues on, human nature remains. Battle of Stirling. Now, this was a great battle for William Wallace. Now, the nobles want to use showing of the army to make a deal for themselves and titles for themselves. William Wallace does not want that. So they want the troops. The troops are all gathered. The British are all gathered. British Army is much larger. And one of the guys says he wants to get out. The commoners know that the nobles are there to negotiate it for themselves. And they say they're just not going to stick around to get more land for the nobles. You see what happens with leadership? Bad leadership creates what? What does bad leadership create? Bad morale. If leaders don't care about their people, it creates bad morale, and it's bad leadership. And these people know they don't care about them, and that they don't care about their freedom and giving them a better life. We here elect people to serve the Constitution, right? And serve the people. It's a republic. So the army is kind of dispersing. They're going back. It's a fantastic scene. It all changes, and Mel Gibson does a great job here, when William Wallace rides in with his men on horses through the crowd. Very dramatic, very exciting. And we all want to be there, right? We all want to ride in. And you can tell now the warriors, not the politicians, are here. These are the warriors. They really want to fight and win freedom. And you sense camaraderie there. They're there together, and they're there to win. And you know these men are not nobles and politicians. They seem to have that great virtue of what? Loyalty to each other. You could see it as they ride in, this band of brothers, this committed group ready to risk all. These men don't seem as likely to betray each other, riding in with William Wallace, contrasting them to the nobles. They have each other's best interest at heart and would die for each other, it seems. Fellowship, fraternity. These men are in a band of brothers. They won't betray each other. They would die for each other. Would you like to have a group of men like that around you? Nobles looking for more power, William Wallace fighting for freedom. It's a great juxtaposition in the story. Which would you want to fight for and with? William Wallace, right? So choose your friends well. Blue paint, some historians don't like it, but they wrote in on with his blue paint on their face. It was, pretty interesting. Made them look like warriors. Some historians don't like it because it didn't happen, but anyway. It didn't denigrate Wallace, it only elevated him. So for the purposes of history, Wallace comes across as a great hero, and he was an excellent hero, so that fits. They're not trying to denigrate him with the paint. Big scene, Battle of Stirling. Back to the scene. The army is leaving. William Wallace rides in, and it's just again, the nobles say something to him, and he says, "I pay homage to Scotland, not to you." They say it's their army. He says, "If it's your army, why does it go?" "We didn't come here to fight for them," one of the veteran soldiers says. Young soldier says, "Home, the English are too many." William Wallace then delivers this great freedom speech that we all loved, right? We loved it. "Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace." William Wallace is 7 feet tall, this soldier says. "Yes, I've heard. Kills men by the hundreds, and if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse." Scottish Army laughs. "I am William Wallace, and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of what? Tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No. We will run and we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you live, at least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all these days, all the days, from this day to that, for one chance? Just one chance to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. Scotland forever. If you think it's important to build better, stronger men, please subscribe. We would appreciate it.